It's that time of year, the Christmas jumper is firmly on. So in today's video, I'm counting down my top 5 tech buys of 2022. These are 5 products from either the broadcasting or the live streaming world that I've absolutely loved using this year, and I think you will enjoy just as much too. Let's get straight into it with number 5, fiber optic HDMI cables. I'm going to be honest, I hadn't even heard of these things at the start of 2022, but I am a total convert for them now. Fiber optic HDMI cables use fiber optics instead of traditional copper cabling to allow you to send HDMI signals at much greater distances. So whereas a standard HDMI cable usually shouldn't be much longer than say 7 meters or 20 feet, a fiber optic HDMI cable will have no issues sending a signal at up to 100 meters or 300 feet. And that means that you can have your HDMI based camera placed further away from your A10 Mini, for example, and you can keep everything as an HDMI based workflow, so you don't have to invest in the added cost of switching to SDI for those longer cable runs. Now, I have tried a few different brands of these cables, and the one that's worked best for me is this one, the Atzebe fiber optic cable. They're available in various different lengths from 5 meters to 100 meters on Amazon. I'll put a link for them down in the description below, along with all of the products from today's video. Now, there are a few reasons why I like these ones the best. Firstly, it's a bi-directional cable, which means it works fantastically with your Blackmagic cameras and A10 Mini. You get all of the same tally light, camera control, color calibration as you would with a regular HDMI cable. Secondly, they're full 4K, 60 frames per second, and HDR compatible. So even if you're not looking to use them on an A10 Mini production, but you need a long HDMI cable to send a 4K feed to a TV or a monitor, these are a great option. And thirdly, I've now installed these in multiple studio builds for my clients. I've used them out on location and on shoots, and so far I haven't had any issues with them. In fact, if you want to see these in use, I'll link up here to my behind the scenes video from the Sidemen versus Mr. Beast shoot. Check that out after this video. We used over a mile of these fiber optic HDMI cables on that shoot. Now, 2 quick things I do just want to mention about fiber optic HDMI cables. There is a tiny bead of glass running down the center of the cable, and for that reason, they are more fragile than traditional HDMI cables. You're not going to want to bend these around corners or put them in places where they're regularly going to be trodden on. Secondly, when you're plugging these in, make sure you connect the correct end to the source and the destination. It will be clearly labeled on the HDMI connector, but if you plug them in the wrong way round, you will just get a black screen. So yeah, fiber optic HDMI cables, they've been a new one for me in 2022, but I have absolutely loved them. On now to number 4. Sticking with the theme of wiring, I've been doing a lot of live broadcast studio builds and podcast setups for clients this year, and this little thing has been an absolute godsend. The Niimbot D11 label maker is a pocket-sized label maker that connects to your phone via Bluetooth, where you then use their app to fully design and print your own customized labels. And the reason I like this one so much is because it has specific labels for use on cables. When you're building a setup, whether it be for a home studio, a podcast space, or even a professional broadcast studio, you'll know how quickly the number of cables running everywhere builds up. And that's why it becomes so vital to label your cables. And this thing makes it so easy to do. Let me show you how it works. Firstly, I turn on the D11 and click connect in the app to pair it with the phone. Once connected, it will automatically show you what labels are currently installed inside the D11 and allow you to customize and create your own templates for them. You can change the text, add icons and emojis, adjust the font type and size to fully design the label however you want. I'm creating a label for an HDMI cable, so I've changed mine to say Cam1. And if you're creating multiple labels, all with different numbers, let's say you're labeling up 20 cameras, for example, it can batch process them by automatically incrementing the number on the label as needed, which is a huge time saver. Now, with the label looking how I want, I can just go over to the print tab, select how many copies I need, and then just hit print. And there is our freshly printed label. To attach it, it's as simple as peeling it off and first wrapping the small end around the cable, then folding down the larger side so that our cable is now fully labeled on both sides. The best thing about this thing is the price. The D11 itself comes in at just $36 in the US or £29 in the UK. And then labels are just $11 for a roll of 65. And they come in a whole variety of different colors, which is really useful if you're looking to group the different types of cables that you're working with. Also, I do just want to give a quick thank you to Photo Joseph, who actually told me about this thing earlier on this year. In at number 3, it is my beloved Blackmagic Speed Editor. At the start of 2022, I made the conscious effort to fully switch over to DaVinci Resolve as my editing software. And one of the tools that I found invaluable on that journey was the Speed Editor. Now, you don't need it to use DaVinci, but I do truly believe that it's made my editing faster, more efficient, and more effective. The Speed Editor connects to your Mac or PC via Bluetooth or USB-C if you want it wired, and it works best in the cut page, although I do use it quite often in the edit page too. Now, there are way too many features for me to go through each one in this video, but here are some of the things I love using my Speed Editor for. Firstly, moving through your timeline or source footage. You can scroll through at speed using the scroll mode or get precise movements by using the transport wheel in jog mode. Setting in and out points on your source footage and then adding them to the timeline using the append button. I do this a lot just to select the good bits from my recording so I don't have things like long pauses or bad takes on my timeline when I'm editing, only the good bits. It's also great for fine editing. I use the trim in, the trim out, and the roll function a lot to adjust the edit points between shots. Doing it with the Speed Editor, in my opinion, just feels fluid and I find it a lot faster than using a mouse and keyboard. Where I really love it though, is when I'm using it for multicam editing. I can use the dedicated camera buttons to easily switch between cameras as I'm watching my footage. And of course, with DaVinci Resolve now available on the iPad, you can use the Speed Editor for that as well. And if you want to see how well that works, check out my DaVinci Resolve for iPad video on the channel. I did a little demo with the Speed Editor. But those two products really are a powerful editing solution, especially when you're on the move. And to top it all off, at the time of recording this video, if you buy a DaVinci Resolve Speed Editor, you get 2 licenses to the full DaVinci Resolve Studio version included in the price. In at number 2 is the Insta360 Link. Now, this is a full 4K webcam with PTZ capabilities, pan, tilt, zoom, and it is also packed full of advanced features as well. Things like gesture control, AI auto tracking, desk mode, HDR, and a lot more in there as well. And the image quality on this thing is really impressive, especially for the size. It's quickly become one of my sort of go-to favorite webcams to use on things like video calls and live streaming, especially when I'm on the go. Because of its size, it's really the perfect webcam to kind of have in the bag with you when you're traveling and you can't take a bigger setup with you. I'll also tell you in a second about how I've been using this in some of my productions recently, because I think this might now be my favorite solution for bringing in remote guests. For basic use, you can just plug it into any Mac or PC and use it as a webcam straight away. And as you can see, it looks great straight off the bat. You can use gesture control and have the camera zoom in and out as you need, or activate AI tracking so that the camera follows you as you move around the room, which I have to say is incredibly reactive and responsive. I've yet to really be able to throw it off its mark. But where the camera really comes to life is when you install its companion app, Link Controller. You can manually adjust all of the camera and color settings to get it looking exactly how you want the shot to look. And you can also enable some of the more advanced features in here as well, like desk mode, which will automatically adjust the shot's perspective to show the tabletop perfectly as if the camera was sitting right above. If you can mount your camera directly overhead, then you can make use of overhead view, which will perfectly align and level your shot automatically. Or there's whiteboard mode, which uses AI algorithms to focus and crop your whiteboard to give your audience a much clearer view of it. Or even portrait mode, which rotates the camera to shoot natively at 9:16 rather than 16:9 to give full quality recordings and streaming for platforms like TikTok or YouTube Shorts. Now, one thing I've been using this camera for a lot recently is actually sending it out to remote guests when we need to bring someone into a live broadcast in high quality. So we'll actually send them a little flyaway pack that has maybe a MacBook, a decent microphone, and the Insta360 Link camera. And all they have to do is connect the camera to the computer, and the rest we can do completely remotely. Now, the reason I love using the Link for the remote contributors is because I have full control over the pan and the tilt of the camera fully remotely. So there's no asking them to move the camera. I can always reposition it to make sure that they fit perfectly in the frame, and I can do that from anywhere in the world. Now, before we move on to number 1, there is something that deserves an honorable mention. It's not in my list this year because I got it last year, but my NAS is still one of my favorite pieces of tech that I own and has still to this day transformed the way that I work. So let me tell you more about it with today's sponsor, QNAP. QNAP creates a wide variety of network-attached storage devices. A NAS, as they're known in short, is a bit like a giant hard drive that stores all of your data in one safe and central location, but it's connected to your network, so multiple people and devices can access and work from it at the same time, whether that be from home, in your office, or remotely from anywhere in the world. They offer a wide range of features like 10 gigabit Ethernet and Thunderbolt 3 connectivity for blisteringly fast file transfers, and a whole host of apps too, like my personal favorite, the hybrid backup and sync app, which will automatically take care of regularly backing up your data either locally or to the cloud. QNAP's NASes are scalable and flexible. You purchase the size of the NAS you need and then populate it with whatever hard drive sizes you require. Take my QNAP for example. I've got 5 of Western Digital's Red Plus 12 terabyte hard drives that give me a total of 60 terabytes worth of storage. Plenty for all my video editing projects. I've also fitted 4 Western Digital SSDs to get even faster read and write speeds thanks to SSD caching. I went with the Western Digital drives as they're optimized and specifically designed for use in a NAS enclosure and are tested for 24/7 use. If you want to find out more about my NAS setup and how it has completely changed the way I work, check out my video linked in the description below. There's also a link to QNAP's website below so you can check out their range of fantastic NASes in more detail. Right then, time for the top spot. In at number 1 is the Hollyland Mars 4K wireless transmission system and the Hollyland Mars M1 wireless director's monitor. The Hollyland Mars 4K is a 4K wireless transmission system that allows you to send audio and video signals completely wirelessly at up to distances of around 450 feet line of sight. It supports Ultra HD at up to 30 frames per second and 1080p at up to 60 frames per second. And all of that at a relatively low latency of just 60 milliseconds, which makes it a really great tool for adding in a wireless camera to your live streams. You get both a transmitter unit and a receiver unit in the box. And one of the things I love most about these things is it supports both HDMI and SDI, making it compatible with a wide range of devices and the perfect tool for things like drones, sports events, roaming cameras, where using cables is either just impractical or dangerous. There's multiple ways to power the units as well, whether it be with direct DC power from the wall, or if you want to use things like MPF batteries, you can just slot them on the back here and power them on the go. Or even, as there's a USB-C slot on the side, you can use regular phone charging or portable batteries to power the transmitter or the receiver units, which gives you the maximum flexibility to use the system pretty much anywhere you like, whether it be in the studio or on the go. The killer feature for me is that from one transmitter, you can broadcast the signal to multiple devices, whether that be a receiver unit like this, an iPhone or iPad, which actually then gives you director's tools like scopes directly on your own device, or even to something like this, the Hollyland Mars M1 wireless monitor. Now this is a 5.5-inch all-in-one transmitter, receiver, and touchscreen monitor with professional color calibration. It is packed full of advanced features like 3D LUTs, focus and exposure assist, waveform displays, and much more. And it's all about giving you the professional monitoring tools that you need wirelessly from anywhere on set. As I mentioned before, the M1 isn't just a wireless receiver, it is a transmitter too. So you can mount this on top of your camera and you can get a beautifully large color accurate display for the camera operator. But at the same time, it is also transmitting the signal from your camera wirelessly to your Hollyland Mars 4K receiver, which you could then have plugged in, like I have right now, to your A10 Mini, for example, or any vision switcher. And so as you can see here, if we switch to the multi-view, I now have my camera, if I focus up, completely wireless as I move around. This is the Hollyland transmitter here. And then got the ATEM here. And as you can see, the latency is really low with that 60 milliseconds. It's great. I've really loved using this setup, which is why I've rated it as my number 1. And as a bonus, just for you watching this video right now, because I reached out to Hollyland and let them know they were number 1 on my video, they came back and said, we will give an offer code just for your audience, Alex, that gets them 15% off a Hollyland Mars 4K or an M1 monitor. So if you use the link down in the description below and then use offer code Alex Pett. It's written here on the screen. You'll be able to get 15% off either a Hollyland Mars 4K or a Hollyland Mars M1 monitor. Big thanks to Hollyland for doing that. They didn't have to, but they did. So there we have it. Those are my top 5 tech buys of 2022. But I want to know what yours are. Let me know down in the comments below, and I will be reading them and replying to them and probably judging you just a little bit. But before I go, I did just want to say a massive thank you to all of you for your support of the channel over the last year. I really hope you've enjoyed the videos, and if nothing else, you've found them just a little bit useful as well. I have a bunch more planned for next year, so do stay tuned. But most importantly, have a happy holidays. I hope you enjoy the time. You get time to relax and spend it with your family. And I will see you guys in the new year. If you enjoyed this video, please do just take 2 seconds and hit that like button. It really does help. Also, don't forget to check out this video right here about Blackmagic's new DaVinci Resolve for iPad and how well it works with the speed editor. And if you're new here, of course, hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell for more tech-related videos.